Hello, everybody. This is José Ignacio from the Uncomfortable Dialogues 2022. Thank you very much for joining us today. We value your participation and feedback. Today we have an outstanding leader with us. My friend Péter Iszak is the managing director at On Target Consulting in Budapest, Hungary. Péter is a very dynamic business leader who has worked in several regions with multiple hats or capabilities. America, Europe, Middle East, and also Asia. He started in IT, shared services, strategy, business development, and currently he's also an executive coach. I have known Péter for perhaps 2 decades, and he has multiple leadership strengths: focus, tenacity, curiosity. But the one that really stands out is his personal ability to connect with people in a very authentic and honest way. It is my honor to have Péter in our Uncomfortable Data 2022 virtual studio today. How are you doing, Péter?
Doing very well. Good to see you again. Very busy, in fact. In the last couple of months, we're extremely busy with existing clients as well as with new clients. But maybe you want to say a couple of words about what do you know about my business so we can be on the same page.
Absolutely. Well, Péter, I know that you have 2 or 3 hats. You have your own business and you have consulting services. So
Yes.
how do you manage all this kind of proliferation of priorities? Or in a way, how do you keep focus running your business while providing service to other companies as well?
Yeah, I think that's a key dilemma. And I like the word dilemma because I think the best leaders typically facing dilemmas and not just simple questions. And I think what you raised about this focus is actually a dilemma. And because it means there is no simple answer. It means you need to manage it dynamically. You need to look at the changing forces in around you, but you also need to keep the strategic mindset. And I think that's the balance of keeping the strategic focus and being able to be pragmatic, so you flow your business at the same time, especially in the times of crisis, is I think the $1 million question. It's life and death question for many of the clients I'm working with. And so when it comes to these multi hats, there's one hat that is running my own small company, a consulting business that is working with clients from the US to Western Europe to Central Eastern Europe, and working as I work directly with many company leaders, CEOs across the world. I also see some common themes in terms of how they react to the situations of the COVID, in terms of what are the best practices they have done, what are the sometimes painful learnings that they have gathered in the past 2 years. So when you send the inquiry to talk, I start to think about using both of these perspectives when I talk with you. So I think it will be valuable for the listeners to see both perspectives of hearing.
Yeah, exactly. And as it relates to the consulting side of the business, so you have seen different styles managing the crisis. So
Yes.
what are the 2 or 3 things that you have seen that these behaviors really help facing crisis, or those behaviors really destroy the capabilities of the company? So the pros and
the plus and minuses. Yeah. Typically, in a CEO, assuming the business is healthy, the CEOs that I've seen making the biggest mistakes is not investing in the time of crisis. And I think the best CEOs were not just facing reality, but they kept their push to stay on the edge. As you say in your book, and I relate it to never settle. The best habit of never settle, especially when it's counterintuitive. When they think about, our revenues are uncertain, so maybe we should pool all the investment money we are putting behind developing our own capabilities. The best CEOs actually did the exact opposite. They said, we need to invest, especially now, in terms of customer relationship, instead of marketing positioning, instead of in terms of internal capabilities, being leadership capabilities, trainings, internal capacities, find the best people in the organization. This was the time for the best companies and the best CEOs to invest, and don't pull the brake immediately, but pull it in a smart way, and look at how can we use this time to regain momentum in this time of crisis. And the worst CEOs, if I say, even though it's probably not a good way to say it, but those were the ones who were overwhelmed by the sense of fear, or by the sense of uncertainty, by the sense of questioning what's going on now. Mm-hmm. And I've seen this happening in well-established, well-run businesses, both sides. So, I mean, obviously, if the business was not run well, then the crisis many times pushed them under. But for those who were run well, even then, the CEO who was able to manage the company, manage the day-to-day business, and manage the cash flow, manage the capability allocation, managing the deliveries, was not ready to shape up as a leader. And the leader for me is the person who is able to manage and foresee and drive the change. Mm-hmm. And so this is the big distinction in my head, is how do you balance in the time of crisis management and leadership? Management meaning running the company, day-to-day operations, at the same time looking forward and see what needs to be true 12 months from now. What are the unique situations, unique opportunity that this time right now presents to us as an opportunity. So sometimes we use the term, turning an issue or a problem into an opportunity, which is an easy way to say, but it's much more difficult to execute, right? But indeed, the best CEOs immediately looked at it. Hold on. I mean, I work with an IT company, and they have suddenly, from one month to another, 30% of their resources suddenly freed up because their client was not ready to launch new projects. So the CEO of that company is like, great, that's a fantastic time to build capabilities in this IT organization. We always, said we don't have time to train our people to be better connecting with the clients, to have better communication skills, to be able to develop leadership. Here's the time. Some others were primarily worried about the cash and say, oh, we cannot afford to keep these people on the bench. We need to, downsize. Guess what? The people who were investing into the organization capability were able to gain momentum and gain business, while the others who were constrained by letting people go were basically the downsides. They actually limited their own future business. So for me, this is the time to develop, and this is the time to resist the fear and be ready to make good investment. Again, this assumes that the company has been managed properly before. Yeah. Meaning having good cash position, etc., etc. Cash was king. I'm sure it's a boring statement, but it's still true.
I like what you are saying about investment. And as you mentioned, investment is investment on people, but also on innovation.
And one thing that is interesting, for some CEOs, I've seen that their previous well-working business model, how they were running and gathering, money, how they delivered projects, almost constrained their thinking of what they could or should do. Others saying completely thinking out of their boxes. Yeah. So it's innovation. I want to use the word innovation in a broad sense. Innovating business model, innovating organization model, innovation technology as well. But don't just use innovations for technology. I think there's a huge opportunity to outmaneuver competition with agility. And I think I consider the COVID crisis, just like any crisis, as shaking the boat. And the time of shaking the boat, agility is always a help.
Peter, if we watch carefully this graph, every time the human race has seen a major crisis, there is a new wave of innovation. And the innovation continues to be incremental, and every time is far more impactful and far more beneficial for the human race. Don't you believe that over the next 10 years we'll be seeing the massive impact of the COVID around the world? Better business models, new innovation in multiple areas?
Yeah, could be businesses, but also could be ways of running business. I mean, we see this with
or ideas or new behavior.
Or even how an organization is working together. I mean, just one example, 2 years ago, the hybrid working model would be 90% of the people I work with would say, no, I don't see this working effectively. And I think 90% of the people would say now, that's the way to do it.
Well, I have the final question for you.
Sure.
So this current crisis is not going to be the only crisis that we'll be facing. Do you think that we can really pack those experiences in a way that we can solve the future crisis, even though they are different?
I'm a big believer of generations stepping on each other's shoulders. And I'm a big believer that we are able to pass on these experiences to the new generations in a way that if they want to, they can use this and they can resolve their own issues in the future maybe easier. One thing I know though, those issues will be more complex than these ones. That just seemed to be the truth. And so the challenge for them is to, despite the complexity and the fear they are facing, they still need to go back to those basic ideas of proactivity, of initiative, of taking responsibility, of collaborating with others, and apply those basic principles to those highly complex and highly fearful situations of the future. And our discussion and our, condensed knowledge will be a tool set for them if they choose to use it, but they need to choose it. No one can force it.
Excellent recap, Peter. So for everybody else watching this dialogue, if you have any question to Peter or myself, just write it down here in LinkedIn and YouTube, and we'll get back to you.